Haslam is no stranger. Luol Deng has been around, has played well in spots. You got the rookie Shabazz Napier. Who knows what to expect from him. I like Shannon Brown coming off the bench. Just maybe it's my Lakerness coming out, but I just do. Looking at the Eastern Conference, everyone wants to just pin it on Cleveland and Chicago, but Miami could possibly upset one of those guys in an early round series. So I was really excited to see what maybe Orlando could do, and I'll tell you why. Any team left rebuilding in the wake of Dwight Howard, I'm a supporter of now. But Victor Oladipo's injury, I think that's a big blow to them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a big injury. I do like Vucevic. I like Tobias Harris. Elfrid Payton. Some people are picking him to win Rookie of the Year. I think it's a little premature on that. If he cuts down the turnovers at point guard, and Oladipo, yeah, they're gonna have some trouble early on. But late in the season, anything can happen in the East to get that 8th seed. I'm a big fan of this Magic team going forward. And Jacques Vaughn, yeah, you guys are ripping on him pre-show. I'm a fan of Jacques Vaughn. I think he is a good coach, and maybe not a guy that gets you over the top, but he's good enough for Orlando right now.
He's a Jayhawk, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Was he on that team Syracuse beat, or was that after him?
That was after.
No, yeah, he was a backup to Stockton early in his career.
That's right.
Yeah.
With the Magic.
He was supposed to be the heir apparent, right?
Yeah, and that didn't happen.
Never happened.
I mean, he had a solid career. It was nothing Hall of Fame worthy, but he had a solid career. He was a decent player. He wasn't one of those full-on busts like a Jason Williams.
Right. What about the Washington Wizards? Did they take a step forward this year, or do you think last year's playoff run is probably going to... Usually teams that take a step forward like that, where they win a playoff series and you're like, oh, look at them, they usually take a step back the next year.
Steve, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if they necessarily take a step back, but I just question some of the moves. I mean, this league has proven that you need to have, good veteran leadership, but you still need to, you have to have a young team. And I still question the whole Paul Pierce thing. I know, being a Celtic fan, I think his career was over 3 years ago. And I don't know. I just question the move, bringing him aboard. I understand he'll be good as far as helping younger players and whatnot, but to me, I just think there could have been other avenues they could have taken than going after Pierce. This team is one of those enigmas, and luckily for them, they're in the Eastern Conference, because if they have another season like they did last year, they could still make the postseason. I know we were talking about the Lakers being a 35-win team. They could still be an 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. You know what I mean? That's kind of what some of these teams like Washington, like the Detroit Pistons this year, what they have going for them is, even if they don't have the greatest season, there's still a potential they can make it to the postseason. And, in the NBA, who knows with the postseason? I mean, I know most of the time it's the normal teams that continuously advance, but who knows,
Yeah, I'd say the Wizards. This division's pretty tough considering it's the Eastern Conference. You don't usually say that about an Eastern Conference division, but Heat, Wizards, Bobcats, or Hornets, those are all 3 pretty solid teams in the East. The Wizards, the early, we'll see what Bradley Beal's like when he comes back. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the bringing in Paul Pierce. I know you need a veteran, but Pierce, he looked so checked out when he was with the Nets that I'm wondering if we're going to get that same kind of Paul Pierce with the Wizards. I do think I like the Heat to probably win this division. It's either going to be them or the Wizards winning this division, and the Bobcats a close third.
You mean the Hornets? They're the Hornets.
Hornets. Yeah, the Hornets. Whatever. The Charlotte. I'm going to be like those people that won't say Redskins. Okay? The Charlotte, I got stung by a hornet one time, so I won't say Hornets.
I
So
hate
the
'em.
Charlotte franchise will finish third, and then I'd say Hawks.
The Charlotte,
Actually, Magic Hawks. Hawks will finish fifth in
the
this division.
Charlotte Jordans. Yeah, I'm gonna pick Miami, Washington, Atlanta, Charlotte, Orlando.
I'm going to do the same thing as you, Keith, but I'm going to flip-flop Charlotte and Washington. I think Charlotte will finish second, Washington third,
Okay.
Atlanta, Orlando.
All right, Central Division, the division everyone will be talking about for the Chicago Bulls and Cleveland Cavaliers for obvious reasons. But let's talk the Detroit Pistons.
Thank you.
What are we looking at from this team? Because they're a team that has struggled. Everybody wants to believe Andre Drummond can be something in this league. They got the scorer in Josh Smith. Brandon Jennings comes over from the Bucks last year. This team just seems to be just a giant mess of nothingness. What do you guys think?
Oh, I mean, what nothingness? I mean, it's definitely a hodgepodge. I mean, it's a bastardized team, that's for sure.
Well, that's what I mean. You got a lot of like.
And don't forget Caron Butler coming off the bench.
You got a lot of fireworks, but no substance.
Well, once again, it's really going to come down to the coaching. I mean, are they going to be able to get this hodgepodge of players that, some are young, some are older, some have been on great teams, some have been on bad teams. Are they going to be able to get them to play together? If they do, I think Detroit could actually be pretty good. I could see them being like a 7 or 8 seed. To me personally,
Which is not very good, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good, but I mean, I think the Central definitely is, without question, the best division in the East.
Well,
I mean,
well, yeah.
I think 4 out of the 5 teams are going to be definitely going to be in the playoffs, being the Pacers, Pistons, Cavaliers, and Bulls.
You think Indiana still got enough to make the playoffs?
I still think Indiana is going to surprise people. I do.
That's the thing. I like Indiana's. Before I get into my Detroit rant, Indiana, their problems started once Lance Stevenson and Paul George took over as quote-unquote leaders of that team last year. When it was Roy Hibbert and David West, say what you will about Hibbert, but when those two were the leaders of the team, that's when they were at their best last year. That's what it's going to result back to this year. Plus, I mean, that team, C.J. Miles can score pretty well, and, they're still a defensive-minded team. And Frank Vogel is not a bum of a head coach. I still think they're a good team. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll be fine.
I just worry when C.J. Watson and C.J. Miles are on the floor at the same time. Just give it to C.J. and everyone's going to get confused.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, bad joke. Bad joke.
But, yeah, and then Detroit, I like the term bastardized team. I love that term.
You just like the word
But
bastard.
Stan Van Gundy, this guy's worked wonders before. I'm going to say they're probably a 6 seed in the East. As long as they don't have to count on Brandon Jennings. They should bring in a point guard. DJ Augustine might be that guy to have Brandon Jennings come off the bench or something like that. So Brandon Jennings doesn't do too much. That's always been a problem when you count on him too much.
All right, so how do we see this division shaking up? I'm going to say Cleveland, Chicago, Detroit, Indiana, Milwaukee.
I'm going to do the exact same as you, but once again, I'm going to flip-flop 2 teams. Detroit and Indiana, I'm going to flip-flop. I think Indiana's still going to finish ahead of Detroit.
All right. Bobo?
I'm going to go Cleveland 1, Bulls 2, Pistons 3, Pacers 4, Bucks distant 5.
All right.
Yeah, it's very distant.
All right, so now the division that is near and dear to both of your hearts, the Atlantic Division. The Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Toronto Raptors. Does New York win this division by default?
No. That's the Raptors.
Yeah.
The Raptors win this division by default.
Are the Raptors sneaky good, or are we? Should anybody be afraid of playing the Raptors in the playoffs? Like should Chicago or Cleveland be afraid of playing Toronto in the playoffs?
I think they would have to avoid if they were going to make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. It would have to be the Bulls playing the Cavs on the other side. That's their only shot, I think. But I do like, Amir Johnson, Valanciunas down low. They just brought in Lou Williams, who's pretty underrated. Vasquez, you got DeMar DeRozan, who's very underrated. This team is fairly deep. I mean, when you got Steamsma and Hansbrough coming off the bench, you got Chuck Hayes. I mean, they're pretty deep
Hansborough's listed
for an Eastern Conference team.
Hansborough's listed as the third power forward on this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good for an Eastern Conference team. And I'm not a huge Hansbrough fan, but that guy, he can be valuable in a playoff series. He could get somebody suspended because he's a douche.
Yeah.
But, Chuck Hayes, I mean, this is a decent team. Maybe a little heavy power forward center-wise, but that's not a bad thing in the East. I think they win this division fairly easly.
I love the signing of Lowry, the re-signing of Lowry in the offseason.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so un-Raptors. You know what I mean? You find a decent point guard, decent star. If you look at the names on this team, Kyle Lowry is the leader of this team, or should be the leader anyway. It's the kind of situation where the Raptors usually get outbid, and Lowry goes someplace else. But he decided to stay, and I just love that for Toronto.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk. I already brought them up, so let's talk New York next before we get to the Celtics. The triangle offense comes to Madison Square Garden, and J.R. Smith is already struggling with it. Carmelo Anthony is who he is. We know what Carmelo Anthony is. He doesn't play defense. He's a typical scorer, does not typically share the ball very well. Bob, being a Knicks fan, what are you expecting out of your Knicks this year?
I still maintain that if they find a way to make the playoffs last year, they're a better team than what the Hawks were last year. They had more talent than the Hawks. They just didn't put it together. But I still maintain they could have beaten the Pacers. They would have had a shot at making the Eastern Conference Finals with that team last year. Didn't happen. And this year, this is going to be kind of a throwaway year. They got two major contracts coming off the books with Maury and Bargnani after this season. So I think they're just going to kind of tread water. They'll probably make the playoffs. I really love Clee Anthony Early and Tim Hardaway Jr., those young guys. And who knows? They might try to make a trade late in the season with Iman Shumpert, which they could end up throwing J.R. Smith into that mix. And if they can pull somebody out of that, maybe they're 5, 6, 7, 8 seed. I see them making the playoffs, but if they can get something out of those two, I do think that this is a decent team, and I think I might be wearing rosy-colored glasses, but I think this team is going to be solid enough in the East.
Steve-O?
Well, and I'm not a Knicks fan, but I've always respected them quite a bit. Like I've never been a Knicks hater, and to me, I agree with your sentiment, and I truly hope that if they do make any trades this year, they get J.R. Smith off the team. Because to me, I'm not a fan of ball hogs. I'm not a fan of chuckers, even though I was one every second I was on a basketball court in my life. But I look at Carmelo Anthony. He has a lot of talent, and he doesn't pass a lot. He's kind of a chucker, but he does have a lot of talent. But I think J.R. Smith, he's just not. You can't have him on the same team with the Carmelo Anthony, because where Carmelo Anthony has all the ability in the world when he's heaving up shots, I think J.R. Smith, he just goes above and beyond that in way too many ways. So to me, I think they're going to be a good team this year. I don't know how well they're going to match up against the Bulls or Cavaliers, but I think if they can get J.R. Smith off the team and get something good in place of him, I think they could definitely improve over last year.
Right.
Definitely improvement. I would say probably the second best team in this division, barring a catastrophic Melo injury.
Yeah. All right. So, what are you guys thinking about the Eastern or the Atlantic Division. Boston